2025 is an incredible year for smartphones that are set to redefine what a next-gen phone truly is. But it's just the beginning, and today I'm gonna talk about the hottest, most innovative upcoming smartphones of 2025. This is ByteForge and let's get to the video. We've already seen a bunch of phones lately which are truly amazing, like at the end of 2024 we've seen the Vivo X200 series with that crazy camera, OnePlus 13 launched with the Snapdragon 8 Elite and that silicon carbon battery, and for cheaper prices we've seen the Honor Magic 7 Lite and the Poco X7 Pro. All these phones are pretty crazy. Now imagine how crazy would be the ones that we're gonna see this year. Okay, now the first company that I wanna start with is Samsung. As you know, we're just a few days away from the Galaxy Unpacked, which is gonna be on the January 22nd. And the phones that we're gonna see are the Galaxy S25 series. And I gotta say, Samsung's gonna offer the best they've ever done this year. Now for the Galaxy S25 Ultra, we're basically seeing the same design language as the previous generation, which is already pretty good, but there are some minor changes that I'm gonna talk about. It's gonna be bigger at 6.9 inches. Not a lot bigger because the last generation was 6.8. The frames are fully flat but the corners are more rounded, the opposite of what we saw on the S24 Ultra. And it's gonna be tougher. Samsung's using a higher grade titanium on the S25 Ultra, which makes it more durable, something like we saw on the iPhone 16 Pro or the Pro Max. Now if you fancy a more of a compact design, I've got good news for you. The regular S25 is gonna be the same size as the previous generation. It comes with 6.2 inches, which is pretty comfortable to hold. Now for the displays, we ain't gonna see that much of a difference because the displays on the S24 series are already pretty good. The only difference could be the brightness and the protection. On the S25 Ultra, we're probably gonna see the Gorilla Glass Armor 2, or Plus, or Pro. And for the regular S25 and the Plus, we might see the first generation of the Gorilla Glass Armor, which also includes the anti-reflective coating, which I ain't gonna lie, it's a must. Now as for the camera, there ain't much gonna change on the regular S25s, apart from some software improvements thanks to the new processor, which I'm gonna talk about it of course. But on the S25 Ultra, we're seeing a higher resolution ultra-wide camera, which is going to be a 50 megapixel sensor, which is a drastic jump from the 12 megapixel on the previous generation. And that results in a sharper image, especially at nights. Apart from the camera, the battery is going to be the same also. The S25 Ultra is having a 5000 mAh battery, same as the previous generation and generations, which is a bit small for a phone with that aspect. Some companies are using a newer technology for their batteries, like the silicon carbon, which allows them to use a higher capacity battery, like a 6000 mAh one on a smaller chassis. I have no idea if Samsung's gonna do it this year, and if they don't, it's probably for the next generation. And as for the regular S25s, the S25 and the Plus, we're gonna see the same battery as well, a 4900 mAh for the Plus and a 4000 mAh for the regular one. Aside from the battery size, we're gonna see the same charger as well, a 45 watt charger, which is not included in the box of course. Though there are some rumors that we might see a Qi2 wireless charging on the S25 series, which allows them to increase the charging speed up to 25 watts, and they're gonna use magnets to help them attach the charger to the back of the phone properly. And the performance is in the hands of a Snapdragon 8 Elite, the power-hungry chipset that runs everything smoothly. And guess what? The good news is that all the S25 series are gonna use the Snapdragon 8 Elite. And thankfully Samsung is gonna ditch the Exynos this year because it was an absolute disaster. Okay, now let's talk about Apple. We're probably gonna see the iPhone 17 series around September, but it's a long way ahead and there's nothing much to talk about that. What we know and can talk about is about the next generation iPhone SE, the SE 4th generation, the iPhone 16e. I still don't know what the name is gonna be. Okay, so the design of the iPhone 16 Emo Edition is gonna be the same as the iPhone 14, sorta. Like we're still gonna see the same old notch in the front, no dynamic island this time. And inside that big ass notch, we're probably gonna see a 12 megapixel front facing camera, just like the iPhone 14. And we might have the autofocus too, which lets you to take close-up selfies. And in the back, we are still seeing a single camera, which is rumored to be a 48 megapixel sensor. And it's a good thing because it lets you to have 2x zoom with lossless quality. And if Apple add the sensor shift stabilization to the iPhone SE 4th generation, combined with the newer processor, we might see the action mode, which gives you the gimbal style of a stabilization. And as for the battery, since the design is the same as the iPhone 14, we might see a larger battery this year, which is a good thing because the previous generation iPhone SE's battery was an absolute dog shit. And we're probably gonna see the USB-C, but don't get your hopes up. You ain't gonna see the super ultra fast charging port. It's a USB 2.0. Apart from the battery, the processor is gonna be the same as the iPhone 16. Probably. Not the Pro, of course. They're using the A18 chipset, which is a pretty powerful chipset that handles everything pretty easily. And if that statement is true, we might see the Apple Intelligence on an affordable iPhone. And don't forget the AAA games like the Assassin's Creed Mirage or the Resident Evil. The name is so hard. Resident Evil 4 Remake. Now the next company that I want to talk about is Nothing. Not Nothing, the company Nothing. Well, last year Nothing did nothing. I mean, it didn't come with a flagship smartphone. They focused on budget-friendly options like the Nothing Phone 2A and the CMF Phone 1. The Nothing Phone 2A is my favorite so far, but I don't have any money to buy, so yeah. Now, CarPlay CEO of Nothing kinda spoiled the surprise and confirmed that there is a Phone 3. Now, the leaks show that there are two variants of the Phone 3, the Phone 3 itself and the Phone 3A. They're gonna be the same size apparently at 6.7 inches, which is pretty ideal to be honest. And the design language is gonna be the same also. I don't know about the Phone 3A, but the Phone 3 itself is gonna be something like the previous generation. There's not much of an information about the camera, but you know, knowing Nothing and the specs from the previous generation, I'm pretty sure that we're seeing some nice improvements over the camera quality, for the pictures and the videos, of course. Now, as for the processing power, this time the Phone 3 is gonna be something else. It's gonna use the Dimensity 9400, which is a close competitor to the Snapdragon 8 Elite. And I gotta say, it's really proved itself in different scenarios. Now for the Phone 3A, we're gonna see the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3, which is a solid processor for a budget-friendly smartphone. And of course, these phones are coming with the Nothing OS 3, which is a forget about it. It's coming with the Nothing OS 3 with some AI stuff that is a must in 2025. Now it's time to talk about the Xiaomi's true monster. The Xiaomi 15 Ultra is gonna be launched around March, I guess. And it's gonna be the same size as the previous generation. It comes at 6.73 inches, which is pretty ideal. And it probably comes with three variants: ceramic, leather, and fiberglass. I gotta admit, Xiaomi's doing some fancy stuff over the last few years. Now for the cameras, Xiaomi probably continuing the collaboration with Leica, which is pretty good. I mean, Leica performs pretty good in terms of the camera quality. And we are still seeing the 1-inch sensor as before. And in addition to that, we see the variable aperture too, which gives you more control over the light and the background blur. And as for the other sensors, the ultra wide is gonna be the same as before, and the 3x telephoto is 50 megapixels and the 4.4x periscope lens is 200 megapixels, which results in a sharper image quality at higher zoom levels, which is pretty good. But I mean, 200 megapixels for periscope lens is pretty crazy. And the combination of these sensors makes that a quad camera setup. Now, as for the battery, we are probably gonna see something in between 5500 and 6000 mAh. Xiaomi might have used the silicon carbon. Who knows, but if they do, it's probably closer to 6000. Although I hope to see more than 6000, but it's unlikely to happen. And as for the processor, of course, yeah, it's the Snapdragon 8 Elite and it doesn't need any explanation. It's pretty good. That's it. Now, moving on to Google. Later this year, Google is coming with the Pixel 9a, which as the renders show, it's gonna be slightly bigger at 6.3 inches. Compared to the previous generation, which was 6.1. And that makes it the same size as the Pixel 9 and the 9 Pro, which makes it pretty nice to hold. Just like the previous generation, the back glass is made of plastic. But it's a good plastic, to be honest. The quality is pretty good. And as for the display, we are probably gonna see a 120Hz display, which is OLED. Which I hope the bezels aren't as chunky as the previous generation. I mean, look at it. Jesus. Now the leaks show that we might see a 48 plus a 13 megapixel camera in the back, which is the wide and the ultra wide. But it's not confirmed that it's exactly the same sensor as the Pixel 9. We'll see. And the 13 megapixel front facing camera. Now this year the cameras of the Pixel 9a are gonna perform even better than the previous generation. But you know, when it comes to the photos, Google always does the job right. Now apart from the camera, it's time to talk about the battery. Surprisingly, this phone is using a 5000 mAh battery. 500 more this year, which combined with the newer processor, will see a better battery life this year. Speaking of processor, this phone, the Pixel 9a, is using the same processor as the Pixel 9 series, the Tensor G4, which is a pretty decent processor for a little bit of gaming and regular tasks. To be honest, you cannot really rely on it on heavy stuff and heavy tasks. I mean, it cannot really handle it well. But for example, it might sound a little bit too much, but you can play the Genshin Impact at the highest graphics without any issue. It might not be important for you, and it's not important for me also. Now, apart from the gaming and the processor stuff, we might see an 8GB of RAM instead of the 12 which we saw in the Pixel 9 series. And I wonder how it would affect the on-device AI processing. And as for the software, I think it's coming with the Android 16 and the promise of being supported for like 7-8 years, which is pretty good. And that's it. Thank you for watching till now, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and ring the bell so you wouldn't miss the new videos. And don't forget to like the video and drop your nice comment, and I will answer to all of them. This is Whiteforge, and see you in the next one.